couple hours, right?
But yeah, she goes 5 nights a week and then she ups to shifts.
Screwed up. Our regular meeting of the city council to order. If you would please join Councilman Claire, leading us in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start with council member reports. Council member Donahue, do you have a report?
I do.
I actually had the honor of presenting a couple awards at the Best of the West with Westmark. One of them was the Peoria Police Department that received an award, and 2 of the policemen who live here in Litchfield. That was kind of cool. But anyway, amazing how that group has grown. There were like 500 people there. And I told them I remembered when I was a PTA mom at Litchfield and we were standing on the, in our khakis up on the stage. So that's pretty awesome. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Councilman Claire.
Nothing to report.
Councilman Brandon Watson.
Nothing to report, sir.
Councilman Romack.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I happen to live over in a development called the Peninsula, which has 5 cul-de-sacs, and we've had some paving problems over there for a while. Well, the engineering here in the community has hired Roadrunner Asphalt to do the work, and I'll tell you, they've really done a nice job. They're nice people. They're being sorry about that. They're anybody else know how to work this? Anyway, they're being very nice to us. They're good to work with, good people, and I want to congratulate them and congratulate our engineering staff. So thank you. That's all.
Okay, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I got a few comments, but I'll hold those till later, but just one thing. I attended the Millennium Homecoming Parade downtown, same parade route we have for the Christmas parade. We should do a better job of advertising that to the citizens. That was actually a very nice day, a very nice event. If you got little ones, there's far more candy than they can ever pick up. Wow. I mean, I've never seen so much candy being thrown. It makes us look like, you know, we're chintzy when we do it, you know, but it is a nice event, you know, and we approve it every year to use city streets, but I think we should do a better job of telling the citizens to come out and take a look at it. There were a lot of people there, and not quite like the Christmas parade. There were a lot of people, but it was nice. Thanks.
Actually, Mayor, I had one more comment about that, and that is, what will help with that is, have you all seen the Instagram? Our Litchfield Instagram is fabulous. Chuck Emmert's doing that right now, and it's awesome, and I see it being shared and shared and shared and shared, so he's a perfect example of being able to advertise that next year, a week before type of thing. But if you haven't seen our Instagram, oh man, it's awesome.
Exactly what is Instagram again?
Oh, man. Well, ask Kennedy,
I'll
your
do that.
10-year-old granddaughter.
I just have a couple of things I want to mention. First one is the flag program at Litchfield Elementary School is now up and running again with COVID and all the issues that have been going on in schools over the last several years. The flag program, Mr. Cohn had to kind of suspend the flag program, but it is now up and running again. It's got about 50 students. I had the honor of going and talking to them for an hour. It was quite an experience, actually. I want to tell you, they're much more interested in whether there are fighter jets and what kind of fighter jets there are at the Air Force Base than they are about our new Litchfield Square. But this thing, we had a great time for an hour. So we're going to try to get the flag program back involved in the second thing, which I talked about, and that is we had the Marine Corps birthday on November the 9th, if I recall correctly. Fortunately, we had a couple of our council members there in the form of Vice Mayor and Councilman Womack, and it was a very nice event, and it is something that I would encourage everyone here to go to if you have an opportunity. We had representatives from the police department and the fire department were there. But I would urge staff to figure out ways to get those celebrations more effectively properly advertised, because the residents who do come are, they're typically from that service, so we had a number of people from our community that are veterans of the Marines. But it is a great way for us to recognize the various armed forces, the various divisions of our armed forces, and to say thank you. So it was a good event, and I think it's something that Litchfield has done a good job at promoting over the last decade plus. With that, we'll go on to yes, Mr. Watson.
Just one thing for staff. Our agenda packet and everything falls off of the city website. Apparently it's 7 o'clock on the time when the meeting starts. So those of us that are not smart enough to download the packet when they read it and show up with their computer and access the internet cannot pull it up. Can we change the buttons on that so it doesn't fall off till like 8 o'clock?
Yes, sir, we will certainly change that.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. City Manager, you have a report.
Mayor and Council, you do have my monthly report in your packet.
Sorry.
Just a few things I would like to hit on. Of course, it's the holiday season. As you know, we have a lot of city meetings coming up. We have the special meeting for the Vistago hearing and discussion tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. That is at St. Peter's at Celebration Hall. We have the City Truck Restrictions Public Input Meeting. That will be on Wednesday, December the 14th at 6 o'clock at the Wigwam Ballroom. We have reached out to the trucking industry to invite them to that meeting. Hopefully they come. Something I would like to say personally for me, as you guys know, I came back to the office on October 17th after being out 2 weeks for the birth of my son, Max. And he came safely, but I would like to especially thank our ACM, Paige Peterson, here beside me. She did a great job while I was gone and made my life easier where I could enjoy the time with my family. I certainly appreciate that. And I would also like to thank council for working with me for if you don't mind me being personal for a second, my son was in the ICU for the last 2 weeks and he came home safely okay, so we thank God for that. But thank the mayor and council also for working with me and allowing me to spend the time with them. I do appreciate it. One more thing. We are working on the first steps to make us a charter city. The first step is called the public election of what's called 14 freeholders. It's a process, so that election will be in May of this year. And in that time, if it's approved, we will appoint 14 people to start this process for the city becoming a charter city. And if we do that, it will give us more control of what we can do locally. That is, a lot of your bigger cities are charter cities. It is a lot of hoops to jump through, but it is something worth doing. So if you have any questions on that, please let us know. And that being said, I would like to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And I want to tag on to your comments about staff in general and our Chief Financial Officer, InterGov, well, I'm not sure, Assistant City Manager Paige. She did a great job while you were absent, both for the birth of your son and over the last several weeks when you've been dealing with his health issues. So we want to say, on behalf of the entire council, thank you to Paige.
Okay. Question, Matthew. On this meeting tomorrow night, can you explain a little bit more about that? Is there a vote going on tomorrow night, or is it just information?
Yes, sir, there is. So the meeting tomorrow night is on the Vistago item. There will be a public hearing at 6 o'clock. And also on the agenda, there is a general plan amendment and also a rezone. And again, that meeting is tomorrow at 6 o'clock at St. Peter's Celebration Hall for the Vistago property.
So this will be our final meeting on that project?
This is not on the agenda for general discussion.
No, I know, but you brought it up.
But there is an executive session item that may provide you more insight on what's going to happen. So I'd suggestion is that we save your questions until then.
Executive session tonight?
Executive session tonight.
No. Okay.
It's just respectfully requested.
Well, you brought up the Vistago. You brought up the Vistago meeting.
Again, we're going to have a meeting tomorrow on Vistago, but to get into the discussion of what is going to happen involves advice from our council, and we need to, I think, keep it within the parameters of open meeting law. So I kind of miss Joe. Where is Joe? I know he's sick. So
Joe is actually not.
All right, so help me out here, Joe.
Yes, if we could please limit the discussion to what's on the agenda. We do have the executive session to talk about some legal aspects about about what's coming up tomorrow night, but
Thank you. So hopefully all of your questions will be answered
Thank you,
through
Matt.
that legal advice. All right, so we're going to go on to the response to the last meeting's call to the community. There was no request to speak, so there's no response. Brings us to this meeting's call to the community. I don't have any requests to speak. This is an opportunity for anyone to speak to the council on a non-agenda item. If you'd like to address the council, you have to fill out a form. Since I don't have any forms, I'm going to assume there are no requests to speak. So then we'll go to presentations. We have this meeting, the presentation of our yard of the quarter. This presentation goes to David and Gia Gray, who live on 580 East Circata Lane. This is one of the original homes over in that area of the city north of Bird Lane. And it was actually built originally by our Councilman Romack. So congratulations. They have done a great job at keeping up the yard in front of the house that you constructed. It's a beautiful home. So we appreciate all of their efforts, and we will give them a recognition privately since they were not able to come here this evening. Next item is a presentation that's going to be presented by our city manager, Matthew Williams, the Government Finance Officers Association Award.
Mayor and Council, we would like to thank our Finance Director, of course, again, Paige Peterson here beside me, and also our Finance Department for winning this award. As the Mayor said, this is the Government Finance Officers Association, commonly known as the GFOA Award. This is a great thing for a city. It shows that we're doing things right, tracking documents as we should, and that we have a good finance department. We consistently win this award year after year, and that's a testimony for our staff and for the city overall, because having worked for cities that don't have the best finances, it's not that easy to come by, so they do a great job. Thank you for our finance staff. Paige, anything you'd like to say on that?
Just thank you to my staff. We have a really great finance staff, and as well as all the department director support and cooperation during the audit. Thank you.
Please extend our appreciation to your staff for doing a good job once again this year. All right, that brings us to our report section. We have a report from the Goodyear Fire Department. It says Deputy Chief Paul.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Ed Paul with the Goodyear Fire Department. I'm here to present October's response numbers to you. In October, we responded 65 times into Litchfield Park, just up 6 from last month and up 6 from October of last year. In that grouping, we had 2 fires. One was a compacted fire at the Wigwam, and another was somebody just burning something in their backyard. 52 EMS calls, and I'll talk about the specific ones that we will talk about. One hazardous condition, which was a fuel spill and a lockout, child lock in a vehicle that was running, was fine. 4 good intent calls and 5 false alarms. In addition to that, we did 1 plan review, issued 1 construction permit, and did 6 occupancy inspections. So the EMS calls that we usually talk about, we talk about La Loma and Hacienda. So La Loma had 7 calls total. 4 of them resulted in a transport. Only 1 of them was a false. However, Hacienda had 14 calls. 8 of those were transports, and 10 of those were false. So we talk about this every meeting about the calls that they have at Hacienda. Our EMS chief has talked to them. We're not really seeing much improvement, so we do have some options to provide programs to them. We do a home safety inspection for people that request that we go through their house and we talk to them about things they're tripping on, what they can do to make their house safer. So we're going to try that. That's the next thing to do at Hacienda to try and reduce their falls. 4 of those falls were transported. So 6 of them, just helped them up, put them in the chair. That's all the numbers I have. Do you have any questions?
We appreciate your service to our community. Councilman Donahue.
So I'm just curious at Hacienda, because there's a number of different pods. Are the calls coming from one particular, or are they spread out?
It's not indicated in the report.
Yeah, I just wonder if, one of the houses is not as up to speed as the others. I'm just curious,
We hope to identify that when we go out and do a kind of a safety inspection.
Yeah. Because you'll have to do the safety inspection in each one of them, I guess, or pull them all in.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like, we do them in homes where we just walk by the house and go, okay, you have 6 area rugs and you slip and fall all the time. Maybe you should think about getting rid of the area rugs.
Yeah.
So we'll go through the whole place. I think they'll be fairly receptive to it, but we'll see.
Thank you.
Councilman Clare.
Do we have a sense of how many residents at each of the facilities there is?
I don't have that number.
Trying to see if we're just completely out of school on one side versus the other. Do they have more residents at Hacienda?
No, it varies month to month in terms of which one has gotten more calls that need attention and some that don't. Originally, Hacienda was going to be having something in the area of 90 residents. And then maybe they were having trouble getting to that point, so I don't know if they've gotten that high now. But 90 would be more, I think, than the assisted living at Sunhelp. But it doesn't seem to be really related to that. First, Councilman Romack.
Thanks, Mayor. For years, I've wondered why the building department and why you, as a department, provide the inspections or tell us how many inspections have been done. That part I understand, but how many building permits and how many other things that the building permit is involved, the building department is involved with, and I still don't understand the correlation between those two. Can you help me with that?
Between the permits and the inspections?
Yeah, well, the building permits,
Right.
okay, that I work with all the time, and Brian and Stacy in that particular department, and what does that have to do with the fire department and doing building inspection?
Well, the building inspections, first of all, there's just certain buildings that have to be inspected every year.
Yes,
Restaurants, things like that, systems and all that.
Public building, yeah.
But for the permit, I can ask the fire marshal to come and really explain that at the next meeting. He would have more information on the correlation between the two.
Okay, I'm sure someone here, your staff can fill me in on that, but it just doesn't make sense to me coming from you guys. We have our own building department, so anyway, thank you.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Many of you weren't here, I don't think, at the time, but we had a request from our main user of services years back to increase the number of beds that were available. Before that happened, they were running numbers like this, and then for some significant period of time while this was before us and processing through staff, their numbers went massively low with the calls. And then as soon as they got the approval to increase their beds, calls went back up again. They can fix the problem. And if they don't, at some point we're going to have to. Chief, I just want to compliment you and the department. I have a neighbor who unexpectedly used your services, your EMS services, in a life and death situation that just came on instantly. And the response time, the compliments from them have been outstanding. that's the kind of thing that we as a council like to hear, you know, from those of you that are serving our citizens. So thank you.
We'd like to hear that too. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your report, and please convey our sincere appreciation to all the firefighters for the job that they do for our community. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, brings us to the Avondale Police Department report. We have Chief Martin here.
Mayor, Vice Mayor. Again, my name is John Martin, represent Avondale Police Department here. October stats were relatively less than the last couple months, which is good. We're on that right track downward instead of upward. We had a few accidents. We've seen an uptick in accidents in the area of Camelback and Dysart and Camelback and Litchfield Road. That's the intersections. We have seen a decrease in semis driving down Litchfield Road between Union School and Camelback, which is good. But my wife was wanting to know why she always sees semis when you turn on Union School. Like, because I'm not watching, so it's a good thing. We had a couple more citizen assists and suspicious circumstances in the area of Dysart and Indian School by the Circle K and Fry's. A couple of those instances, we had made arrests for transients who had been trespassed previously from that area, who came back, and we kindly issued them a ticket and took them to jail. So, other than that, the city's been relatively quiet, except for one hot topic, and I can go ahead and address that for you briefly. I know there's a meeting on Sunday, which one is correct, that the chief will be attending also, and then we'll have exactly work in that case. This is a reference a shooting that occurred on October 31st, Halloween. It was just past the 30th in the area of the village. There's reference a house off of Luna that had a party, and the occupants of that house sent out a message through social media saying, hey, we're having a get-together gathering here. Well, when you do that blindly, you get people that show up that probably didn't want, which was the case in this incident. We had 3 subjects that showed up at this party at this residence. At some point during the time, there was some altercation between these 3 subjects and some occupants of the house. The information that we got is the person, one of the individuals who sent out, that was residing in that house, sent out the message that they're having a party. It got out of hand, and a lot of more people showed up than they anticipated. And then there was an altercation between 2 groups. 3 subjects that showed up that we eventually placed under arrest. There was a gunfire exchange between multiple people on the street where houses were hit, vehicles were hit. One subject was actually shot in the upper thigh area. He was a minor. He's eventually taken to the hospital, but we actually placed him under arrest after the fact. There was a vehicle that fled the scene and it crashed down the roadways. Those occupants had fled with assistance of MTSO who responded and were circulating the area also. They located 2 of the subjects that we were looking for. We again took them under arrest, placed them under arrest. All 3 of these individuals do not reside in the city of Litchfield. One resides in Tolleson, the other 2 reside in the city of Phoenix. So they really don't have any ties to the west side other than that. Definitely don't have any ties to the city of Litchfield Park. We believe this was an isolated incident between some of the occupants that were there who don't live there, and then these 3 individuals. The night prior, Goodyear had a similar incident to this, which was just west of Millennium High School, where gathering of 400 to 500 individuals is what I was told through the Goodyear Police Department. Shots fired. They got a call shots fired in that area also. That residence, where I was told in the hundreds of cases that were found on the street and the roadway. These subjects that we arrested the next day, we believe are tied into the same incident that Goodyear had. And then we also have information that they're tied into an incident in Phoenix. So we're working hand in hand with our detectives. We're working with Goodyear and Phoenix on to bring these cases together, to mash them together, and to come up with a bigger, stronger case on it. I know there's some questions on these individuals' cases, their charges aren't being filed on a couple of these individuals, but that's just preliminary. That's Maricopa County Attorney's way to say, hey, we need more information on this. So we were actively working this case. These 3 suspects from our incident that happened on Halloween night are still in custody as of this morning for multiple related charges stemming from this and other incidents throughout the city, or really the west or east Valley area and Phoenix area. So we are actively working this case. We have a great relationship with Goodyear, and we're working this hand in hand with them to see if we can make a better resolution to these individuals they consider. So, contrary, so later on after this this incident happened, we did have an incident in the village area, which was on Halloween night, where a kid thought it was funny to go up to a house and trick or treat when it looked like a weapon at somebody at a residence. They called us, and we ended up contacting that individual, and we actually submitted charges on him for disorderly conduct for thinking it's funny. He actually lived out in Luna, so I think he has an idea that he knew what happened the night prior. He thought it was funny to go out and do this again, so we didn't think it was the right place.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. There's a lot of comments from I've heard personally and on social media that the 3 suspects were released the next morning. And you just told me they're still in custody. Okay, great. I'll get back to them and tell them that. I was woken up that night by the gunfire, and I was over. Next couple of days, I was over there meeting with neighbors and family where this happened. And for those of you that haven't seen it, there's a pickup truck with bullet holes in the side of it. There is a front room window in the house that's been taped up with cardboard where a bullet went through it. There are holes in houses, bullet holes in a fence, blood on a sidewalk. The leftover antifreeze and car oil from the accident that happened somewhere in this process. I believe it was with a stolen car, maybe a parked vehicle, maybe 2 parked vehicles.
Yes, sir. The vehicle that crashed into it was a stolen vehicle out of Phoenix from carjacking. Yes.
Yeah. And those 3 guys, I understand, put the owner of the car in the hospital.
Yes.
So I'm glad to hear they're still in your custody. But the whole situation was pretty disturbing to everybody that was over there. And I've thought about it, and again, to commend you guys, I've seen the video that shows, sounds like 8 shots, space timeout, 4 shots, space timeout, 3 shots. And the first officer I see, of I think maybe the 4 that came into the neighborhood, was driving to the scene where the shots, part of them, were coming from, within a little more than 2 minutes after the first shot was fired. And the shots kept being fired. So that officer was driving into a possible difficult situation. So, so you guys are to be commended.
You guys did a very good job. There's probably nothing that's happened in the history of Litchfield Park, anything quite like this, having a gunfight in our streets. And we do appreciate the fact that the guys went into harm's way and got it stopped.
So I have a question on something else. This is almost kind of funny, but not. The brewery had the thieves that came and stole the heaters and folded their license plates up So the word on the street is we have license plate readers, but they were, clever enough, I guess, to fold them up so that they couldn't be seen. But as I understand, Avondale knew who, so were they apprehended?
Yes, we located them and found them, and with, they did not take the heaters, they had left them there for some reason, they threw them in the truck and come out.
Oh.
They did take a couple of umbrellas, the large umbrellas. We found them, we found the umbrellas in the truck. TCBC, the brewery, declined any prosecution, so since they got their umbrellas back, they said we're done. But we have them on the radar.
Well, and I think the cameras that Brian Nattenberg has set up around there, I mean, you're basically hi guy. I mean, it was that close, so just wondered.
It's very disappointing when we go through the steps of apprehending these people, and then the business owner won't press charges. It's very disappointing.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
I believe it happened during the same time frame. We had the bicyclists running around.
Yes, that actually happened, was it last week? I live in that, right, this one street south of that individual. He was, riding his bicycle around at school, naked with nothing on. We had located him, he started jumping fences, and we actually found him, placed him under arrest for trespassing and disorderly conduct.
Is he a resident?
Yes, sir.
Did he live in Redondo?
Sagebrush.
Sagebrush, yes. Does he live with his mother?
Is his name Paul?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? Thank you for coming down and giving us a report. Hopefully next month will be less active.
Correct. Thank you.
All right, now we'll go to staff reports. We have a finance report from Ms. Peterson.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight I have the finance report through October. And we'll start with our sales tax report. We had another good month. Overall, excluding construction sales tax, our sales were up 8%, and year-to-date they're up 16%. Construction did go down 33%, and year-to-date 20%. But something I wanted to point out this month is, I know it's kind of hard to see, but of this total retail sales, the food for home consumption or groceries is included in this amount, and it makes up 39% of that total retail, or nearly $155,000. And then of the rental revenue of $70,000, 55% of that is residential rental, so nearly $20,000. So if you add those two together, that's just under $175,000, or 22% of this total. And why I want to really point that out is there's a couple reasons these two revenue sources could be in jeopardy. One is because there's been discussion in the legislature of possibly eliminating the grocery tax and residential rental. And the Model City Tax Code is also, will be sunsetting, so if that's not renewed, these two would go away. So I just think it's really important that we keep our eye on that, and when this legislative session starts, we're very loud, and we educate our legislators on how important these two revenue sources are to us. I'll move on to the total report unless there's any questions.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Maybe something's changed since I was involved with it, because I was involved when the first Model City Sales Tax Code was put together a long time ago, maybe 30 plus years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You say that if the model code goes away, our sales tax goes away. What did you mean by that? I thought they had to affirmatively take it away from the legislature.
Well, if not our entire sales tax, but just these two categories, if it sunsets, then we'll have to mirror what the state charges, and the state doesn't charge tax on groceries or residential rental. So we'll lose those two categories. And I guess I attended the InterGov retreat on Monday and learned that the Model City Tax Code Commission hasn't had a quorum for a couple of years. So the first thing that has to happen is the governor needs to appoint a quorum. As far as the rest of the process, how that goes, I'm not exactly sure. I'll have to look into the details.
Yeah, okay. I was surprised to hear that we would automatically lose without an act of the legislature. The code, when it was first put together, was nothing more than a book about this thick of select item A, B, and go from page to page, and select the things to kind of design it to fit your situation, but it was a uniform code. And a lot of the cities were late to the game in enacting it. Some maybe never have. So that's why I was kind of surprised that maybe you thought we'd automatically lose the sales tax if there's not some active movement.
If I'm understanding it correctly, I think it's about to sunset. It's about to run out, so it has to be renewed. So if the legislature doesn't renew it, then maybe the mayor, I think we're about to say something.
As I understand it, the model city tax code enables taxes that are not normal taxes within the statutory scheme for the state. The rental tax and the grocery tax are the biggest examples of that. So if this legislation goes away because it sunsets, then the enabling legislation for those taxes will go away. So it's something the league is actively working on, both from the standpoint of the model city tax code and also just the standalone issues of the rental tax and the grocery tax.
It's been 20 years since I followed it, so that's why I was kind of curious.
Hopefully it's renewed and this stays, because these are obviously, grocery is our largest revenue source.
There's a lot of conservative opposition to just the idea that the cities would have a different ability to tax than what the state has. And so the model city tax code has a number of detractors that we'll have to really have to get by that problem.
So the total report through, I can't see that, hold on. Our total revenues through October, we're at 34% of the year, and our total revenues are at 32% of the year. However, some of our state shared revenue hadn't posted as the date this report was prepared. So I think we're actually right at about 34%, so I'm not too concerned about that. Our department budgets are at 33%, so they are right on track. Last month I said I would double check this since this debt service is nearly at full budget. That's the old debt that we refinanced for a much shorter period, so we paid a lot more principal early, and then the next payment is a very small interest payment. And then this Litchfield Square is mostly, there was a little bit of principal and the rest is interest, and then there will also be another smaller interest payment paid in January. So overall, our revenues exceeded expenses by nearly $354,000. Our one-time revenues, less capital expenditures, are right at $2 million, leaving an ending fund balance of $22.6 million. The detail for Bracken special events is in your packet. I won't go through that unless anybody has any specific questions. Our special revenue funds, HERF was at 30%, and interest is at 496%, so a total of $164,000. We've spent just under $5,700, but there's a project in the works that will bring this balance down. So at the end of October, our HERF balance was just under $1.4 million. Our Litchfield Square, the bond proceeds and the land sales total just under $9.2 million. And we have spent just over 2.1, leaving $7 million in that fund. Our court enhancement has a balance of 76,000. That can't drop below 50. And this is just a summary of our total fund balance of all funds. General fund at 22.6 million, and that leaves us with just under 23 months of operating expenses. And that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Questions? Councilman Donahue?
Paige, are our HERF funds committed? Do we have projects?
Yes, there are some committed projects. Keith could help you with the details on that. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I know there are projects committed already.
Any other questions? All right, thank you for your report.
Thank you.
We'll go on to the report on the crane plume from our city engineer.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. November was a fun, busy month for the PGA. We had the well and the lake tested, I think roughly around November 3rd, so waiting on those results. We had a community advisory group technical meeting. It's kind of a yearly meeting that PGA puts on, and they provided this presentation that I want to kind of go over, and a few more details and several questions that you get every once in a while. Starting off, subunit A is the section of groundwater that affects us here in the north area in Litchfield Park. Since the 1970s, when it was started to generate the plume became 2.5 miles. This is the original area. Councilmember Mike mentioned a few meetings ago that area has been demolished and is getting redeveloped. So it spanned 2.5 miles straight north to the city. The general reason why that happened is groundwater drawdowns for a lot of agricultural for many, many decades. So as a result, as we all know, PGA put extraction and injection wells throughout this area. So in 2017, seeing that the plume wasn't adjusting, what the team did is they modified their attack to be more of an aggressive use of squeezing, what they've done in various other parts of the country. And so a radical kind of new idea here locally was modifying the extraction and injection wells so that they would squeeze and draw out the TCE infiltrations. So as you can see from the magenta lines are the injection wells and the blue lines are the extraction. So the idea is suck out the bad stuff in the middle, treat it, and inject it on the outside to squeeze the plume. It's been very successful in the last couple of years. Next slide, please. Here's kind of a comparison. So every day, there's about 2,600 Olympic-sized swimming pools in each year. And since the beginning of the remediation system, extracted over 1.8 million gallons of water, which has either been re-injected into the ground or discharged into things like parks, the RD canal, things like that. So every day, about 33,000, the equivalent of 33,000 people, assuming 150 gallons per household. So that's quite a bit of water that's being extracted in those wells. Next slide. And we've all seen this graphic before, so pre-2000, roughly about the 2017, this was the setup. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see that down here in the middle, they added about a half a dozen extraction wells, some that are outside the purview of this. Next slide. And as you can see, the groundwater flow started pushing towards the middle, which, if you recall, the extraction wells are put in the center of the plume. Next slide. That's how it is today. This kind of a graphic of what everybody's concern is. There's not a lot of, perchlorate is another chemical that was injected, and there hasn't been any readings of perchlorate in the last 10 years in the extraction wells.
the big thing that concerns everybody is TCE concentrations, and as you can see, when they start really measuring it, is really high, over 400 parts per billion. This red line is 5 parts per billion, and that's what the EPA has kind of said. If it's at or below that, it's safe to drink. That's of course the EPA's regulation. So the whole goal of PGA is to get to that red line, and as you can see, we are getting ever so close every year. Next slide, please. This is kind of my favorite slide because I think it'll help answer a lot of questions on what the outlook is on the modeling, the extraction wells and injection wells for 5, 10, and 20 years. So as you can see, it just keeps shrinking and shrinking, and as they do the squeeze effect and extract more and treat more water, in 20 years, it will almost be non-existent as a whole, let alone impacting the city of Litchfield Park. So if there's any questions?
Questions? Yes, Councilor Roman.
Thank you for that report. Is this wishful thinking, or is this?
This is more or less. They have some pretty sophisticated modeling where they do these drag nets underground with various subunits, and they model over years how much TCE can get extracted and extrapolate how the model is affected. So this is educated.
Okay, good, thank you.
You have to take into account just what has happened since we have gotten involved in this.
Yeah.
You and I think we were on the council resort.
Right.
This, the plume, if you can see the plume, if you go back a couple of slides, you can see the plume is significantly to the, that's fine right there.
That's where it was.
Yeah, well, and that just outside that red boundary was Dyson Road.
Yeah.
And just on the other side of Dyson Road is where Avondale has a series of their half of the main wells right there. So part of the thing that we worked on back in 2000, whatever, long time, 7, 8, whatever, was getting injection wells installed along that boundary and pushing the plume to the west and up at where our lake was, to push it to the south. And you can see how much has changed even in that period of time.
Sure.
There's been tremendous progress. So the models that they have saying that in 20 years you'll be down to just about nothing they are reasonably believable.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
I'm afraid to guess how many years ago it was we got involved in this mess, but if you look at where it says TCE max extent at the top right there, in that red line, the dashed red line, right below that, I believe, is Indian School Road. The Indian School bypass. And that up above that, that's the lake, Litchfield Lake. And this was, what happened was the plume started down at, in the old Navy base and the old Unidynamics site south of Van Buren on Litchfield Road, and was moving north. But before it got to Litchfield Park, it was fish hooking by all the drawdowns from the agriculture and heading to the west. Double Creek came in, a lot of houses came in, they don't use nearly as much water as the agricultural used. So suddenly you didn't have the draw of fish hooking it, dragging the plume to the west. It continued migrating north. And it was migrating and it was coming toward our lake and under the city. And we got involved, hired experts to watch the meetings, screamed and yelled, got DC, EPA.
Sent letters to the president of Crane and explained that we were going to put advertisements in his local newspaper about him.
Yeah.
Didn't write.
It
finally got after.
Yeah. Finally, somebody put the pressure on Crane to do something about this. So it's only been the last, somebody help me out, 15 years? How long have you been on the council?
14.
Yeah, so the last 14, 15 years that there's actually been activity attempting to get this problem fixed. It was almost nothing more than a semi-caretaking. If we ignore it, maybe it'll go away. And I believe we did have some testing at one point with our lake well, where we had a teeny
We never had anything early.
Was there one or two tests where there was a tiny bit of something in there? But,
It was never good, we never had it confirmed.
Yeah.
Confirmed.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, the money we spent in the watching and screening, and we had Bear Creek Associates, I think it was, involved for years on the payroll, kind of keeping an eye on it. So this is, I mean, looking at where it was, where it is, and what the predictions are, those are phenomenal. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's really good, good results.
And they're actually building on the Superfund site. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
They are, and they installed about 15 new wells in order to develop that.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, the whole city, Goodyear City Hall, there's about 12 new wells just to modify that portion of the city.
Oh, okay. Good. I was told by one of the guys who ran the plant down there that with the government contracts, they told them how to dispose of that stuff. They told them to dump the hole.
Yeah,
And they did. They kept running it out.
The original unit dynamics had, I think, 14 dry wells within the building that they were just pouring into.
And brothers.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your report. Now you have a report on our capital improvement project?
Sir, members of council, let's see the CIP update. As of right now, we have two CIP projects. Member Romack mentioned, we just already drainage improvements project. And over here to the west of where we are now, we have the pavement replacement project on Inca Maya and Tinker Drive. Quick summary of what has happened is Mr. Birdie has modified the pavement section, installed concrete valley gutters, done the majority of the excavation around the backside of the middle peninsula island. Currently installing a dry well in that basin right off the edge of the property for the Long Golf Course. And have already installed brand new pavement sections in one of the peninsula circles. What's upcoming is the remaining catch basins, so we're modifying the graded catch basins with the larger capacity catch basins, so there's just even more protection in the entire Acacia in this area. We also have the other two peninsula circles that will have full depth pavement replacement. As we have heard the last couple meetings, Flood Control is reimbursing this particular project 75% of the design and construction costs. That works out to $460,000 total design and construction costs that are eligible for the reimbursement, which brings it to the 75% amount to $346,000. And we have already invoiced the county for 50% of that. The budget for the project was $670,000, and the contract actually came out to $428,000, so we came out of budget, and we are getting 75% reimbursed by the county. Second project, the pavement replacement. Anybody that's driven by here or lives in the area knows that the asphalt has completely come out of all three streets, and ADC has been installed and compacted as of this afternoon. The 18th is pave day, and that means we're about 98.5% done with that project, and we can open the roads to traffic. Budget for that project was $619,000 of PERF money, and the actual contract was $512,000, so we have to come in our budget. Upcoming CIP projects, Dysart Indian School Road reconstruction, and the asphalt's a little rough out there, so we're going to take care of that. Stag's parking lot is the next project in the chute, followed by we're working on the FY23 payment management plan for upcoming here at spring and summer.
Questions? Councilor Romack?
When do you think you'll start on the Stag's parking?
We want to get substantially complete with the work on these two CIP projects. We have a proposal that has already been approved by council for Roadrunner paving to do Stag's Park. And once they are substantially complete, we're going to get them going on NTP paving. So I would assume that construction, at least the administrative portion of it, will get going here about mid-December.
Mid-December, okay. I'll wait for that.
All right, any other questions? Thank you for your report.
Lisa, Counselor.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lisa. I didn't see your hand up. Excuse me, Councilman Braden Watson.
Have you talked to the church? Mid-December seems like a kind of challenging time for them not to have a parking lot.
Mid-December will be the administrator. I think what we're looking at breaking ground probably within about a month of that. So after the holidays, I wouldn't want to put that on anybody to do construction during the holidays. So I want the brakes a little bit on getting them going until after the new year.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, now thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have a special projects update from Mr. Scout.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'll give you a quick update on Litchfield Square. One thing I learned over my career is that if you build something within the right of way, eventually somebody will get it with a car. So those Gabion baskets that we put in out there at the roundabout, they lasted a week.
You're kidding.
So it's Aiken Gardner's responsibility to get those fixed, and they're working on that. Anyway, Litchfield Road is really starting to look like a street again. As you can see, the roundabout is coming together, and all the landscaping and pavers and the lighting and so on are going in. We're still on schedule to complete that by the end of this year. Village Parkway, which you can't see as well, but if you drive by, if you walk that sidewalk, I'm sure you can see it. But, a lot of the curb and gutters and landscaping will be started around the beginning of December. Some of the sidewalks will be put in place, and then getting ready for the first after the first of the year. I'm sorry, actually, Village Park will also be completed by the end of the year with the paving plan. And then I'm sure you've seen the work going on 27th Street. That is installation of a sewer line extension and also to replace a very small water line that is serving those businesses. This is currently on a 2-inch line, and we're going to replace that with an 8-inch line. So right after they finish putting in the sewer, they're going to come back behind that and put in the water line. That work will be done in early December. And then we'll have an APS power connection made in the Loma, the future Loma intersection with Wigwam Boulevard. And that's going to happen somewhere around we'll put it in, and then we have to cut over the City Hall because the transformers behind the City Hall will be replaced with a new transformer, a new location, so we have to cut the power for City Hall over to that new transformer. I don't have a date yet, hard date, but it'll be mid-December for that. And then tonight we asking for a closure of Fairway Drive in order to start construction on the Airline Canal construction in Fairway Drive. That will parallel the storm drain construction, which is also on the agenda tonight. And that brings me into the storm drain. So with the way we have programmed the storm drain is to start on Fairway Drive first, so we can get that part of it done at the same time we're doing the Airline Canal work. And then jump over to Neolin, and that will probably start around the last week of January. We'll do that storm drain. And then leave Old Litchfield Road for the final segment to be built, and that will start sometime in early April and end mid-June. So by doing that, we're kind of pushing the disruption of the businesses in that on the Old Litchfield Road area now, hopefully for the end of the busy season. At the same time, Liberty Water Company is putting in a water line replacement in Old Litchfield Road, so there will be some disruption of the north lane or the east half of Old Litchfield Road where that work's going on. We're not sure yet when that's going to start, but it'll probably be after the first of the year.
Steve, that 2-inch water line that goes down Honey Cycle is replacing the 8-inch. Will that be sized big enough to fire sprinkler the old buildings and maybe a new building where the old base is?
Yeah, we checked that, to make sure, and we're also bringing a fire line in off of Desert Avenue to back, help supply that as well.
Loop it or?
Not necessarily loop it, but that way we've got part of Liberty's loop that's feeding fire protection water into the and conserve different buildings.
I guess we've engineered this enough pressure or whatever to take care of the existing and maybe another building on that pad.
Yes, when we had the owner of that land, the owner of that shopping center told us that he was thinking about putting in a new building, so we had already checked it based on the existing buildings, and we went back and rechecked it to make sure that it would work well for our buildings.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Off topic. Well, you brought up
Constrained only by the agenda.
Liberty Water. How about Liberty Sewer?
It's really not, it's not on our agenda.
Oh, I just heard the name Liberty.
There wasn't reference to Liberty, yes. Give me Liberty or give me sewer, whatever. All right, any other questions on this topic? Okay, thank you for your report. This brings us to consent agenda item 9. We have items 9A through 9F. 9E is being taken off the consent agenda so we can make an adjustment to a date. Is there any item, any other item on this agenda that anyone on the council would like to take off for further discussion?
I'd like to take C.
All right, so is there a motion to adopt consent items 9A, B, D, and F? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, consent items 9A, B, D, and F are approved. First one that's been taken off the consent item is item 9C. Matthew is here to answer questions. Do you have a question about that item?
So Matthew, the agreement for the school resource officer, I guess my question is that when we first signed on with Avondale, they talked about offering that as part of their deal, correct? Or was that the add-on? Because I thought I remembered when we first signed on with them that and we were like, oh, that's awesome. But now this is a separate.
They have a part-time resource.
So this is full-time?
Yeah, this is different.
Okay. So that's approved and Litchfield Elementary will have a full-time?
Yes and no. This was actually part of the contract. So in our contract, there's 5 beat officers.
Okay.
And there's also a position that is SRO/detective/backup. By backup, it means if the other officers, if they need both officers for an accident, if the officer's out sick, that kind of thing. This is actually Detective Coroner's position. A detective position by nature can be in a school because they're mostly in office. But of course, the key thing to the school to understand that doesn't mean that he or she will be there all the time, but they will be there most of the time. So it is actually already in the contract. Just before we didn't have an SRO. One very interesting thing about this is having this discussion with other cities. A lot of cities will tell you that they already have an elementary SRO, and they do not. What they have is a shared officer that goes from high school to middle school to elementary. As far as I know, we're the only city, I'll say at least in the West Valley, that has this. And we worked on this deal for quite some time. I'm very happy to see this deal come together.
Because we will not be sharing this like with Western Sky or...
No, ma'am. This is
Okay.
only for...
It's a really unique idea.
Yeah, it is.
We're hoping that other cities will take this up. There are positions in all of the police departments where the policemen are mainly working at a desk. And where that desk is located, as long as they've got a good computer, a good phone line, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
So the thought was, why don't we take the desk position and put it in the school?
Yeah, which Mabel Paget did that a number of years ago too with Goodyear. You know.
It's a great idea.
So they'll be located there. Yeah.
It took a while to get an agreement with the school that worked for everybody, but I think staff has done a great job after the school has stayed on to get this idea implemented, and it's it makes our schools marginally safer.
Thank you, sir.
Yes?
I thought I read in the contract that the officer would handle disciplinary action with or without referrals. Is that correct?
Only of a very high level. School discipline issues still fall into the school. Only if things were really hot, like for example, if there was a parent, sometimes we see parents that want to argue in the parking lot, that kind of thing, but they might deal with some of that. But it was mostly distress or other things. I think a great factor of this, as silly as it may seem, is having a police car parked out front. A lot of times that deters just having an officer where it can be seen. And especially as small of a city as we are, one of our officers can be generally in part of the city in, 4 or 5 minutes. So again, I think this is a great deal for the school. And also you may remember there was a hinge point before, and now the school will be adding a camera system under next school year's budget. So that will be started by the beginning of the next school year. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. So is there a motion to adopt item 9C?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, 9C is adopted. Next item is 9E, and Mr. Scout had a change to it.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, this is the pipe work that I mentioned earlier in Fairway Drive, putting in the storm drain and also the Airline Canal underground pipe. Aiken Gardner has had problems getting commitments on delivery of pipe material, so this schedule has slipped for about 2 weeks. So the dates, nothing has changed except for the dates. I'd like to have it begin on December 12th and end on March 13th. So it's the same period of time, it just slipped a little bit.
All right, any questions from council on this change?
And you have in your packet the exhibit that shows where the closure is.
Is there a motion to adopt 9E as amended with the dates 12/12 through 3/13? For second? Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, 9E is adopted as amended. All right, we'll go back to F, even though we're not really allowed to do that. But we'll make an exception for Vice Mayor.
Matthew, the report says that the Native Arts Festival, the police department and public works will be assisting with the parade and the festival. Is that a parade?
No.
Did I? Are we got?
I don't know where that's coming from, sir. The only parade I know of is of course, the Christmas parade and the Millennium High Parade. Tricia, do you know what we're, any idea?
I'll have to find where it says that, but no, that would be a typo.
Okay.
Parade.
Yeah, it's in the background discussion portion. It says they're going to be assisting with the parade and the festival. So that was a surprise to me.
I'm surprised you weren't invited, huh?
Yeah.
Moving on to 10, business, 10A, asset management consultant. Ms. Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. At last month's meeting, the Vice Mayor, you mentioned looking into other investment options to see if we're earning the maximum amount of interest that we can right now. So I wanted to just go over where our money is currently invested, potentially moving some of that and some possible options moving forward. So currently we have $9.5 million invested with the state treasurer through the local government investment pool, $5.3 million in pool 5 and $4.2 in pool 7. The interest performance it's in the agenda packet, but this last month, and this is through September, pool 5 was at 2.53 and pool 7 was 2.34. If you go back just 1 year ago, pool 5 was just at 0.78 and pool 7 was at 0.63, so it's gone up significantly in 1 year. I was able to pull the October numbers this afternoon, and pool 5 was at 3.15 and pool 7 was at 2.93. I was looking for some documentation to see if I could find the reason for the split. I couldn't find anything, so I'm just assuming it was just to have the funds diversified somewhat. These funds can be accessed same day, so they are very accessible very quickly. And the dividends paid this fiscal year through September, so July through September, is just over $48,000. Our other investments are with U.S. Bank and a money market account. We have $11.1 million. It's a very, very small interest. The annual percentage yield earned was 0.00499. Really, this account is used for us to deposit all of our revenues and transfer it to our checking for our operations. So looking into other options other than the state, with the state treasurer and the money market account, public funds are, the investments of them are regulated by state statute. And then we also have we have our own investment policy with the security of the principal investment, liquidity of the funds, and return on investment. So if we wanted to consider investing anything outside of these two, I would recommend that we look into an asset management consultant that could advise us on where we could best invest the money, with them understanding all of the commitments that we have coming, especially with Litchfield Square. So if the council so desires, I could research that and bring that at a future council meeting. And in the meantime, I would also recommend that we move $5 million from the money market account into the state local government investment pool, so we could start earning more interest on at least $5 million. Take that out of the money market, which would still give us a significant amount of cash to deal with our day-to-day operations. And we can, if I put in the request by 10 a.m., we can have it the same day. So it is available very quickly.
Comments from council? I actually talked to my broker, who's Morgan Stanley. They have a whole section, and they have several people who work on nothing but doing this for cities. And it would make sense, as opposed to getting a consultant to go out and have some of the larger firms come in and make presentations to you, and then you can bring those presentations to council.
Okay.
So that would be my only suggestion. Did you have a comment, Mr. Vice Mayor?
Paige, moving only $5 million of the $11.1 million, I think you said you can get the money back in a day. It's getting nothing at U.S. Bank and up to 3% in the state pool. What do you need to have in that account for paying bills on a monthly basis?
Our monthly revenues will cover our monthly bills. It's mostly to have money available when the bond money runs out. But it is very fast. We could put in, we could probably go up to $8 million, leave $3 million in the money market.
If I could suggest, maybe we get a motion that would direct staff to actually do a cash flow analysis to see what amount of money could go into the state fund versus what needed to be maintained in this money market account. And then move that amount and bring it back, move the amounts that you come up with your cash flow analysis, and then bring the cash flow analysis back to us the next month so we can see what your thinking is.
Okay, so do the cash flow analysis, and then we'll set the amount to move in January.
No, I think you can set the amount based upon your cash flow analysis.
Okay.
And then bring us back your report. So long as the money is available on a day's notice anyway, and you're putting the money in an investment that is absolutely safe, then I don't see any risk in just, you should do an analysis of what do you really need. And you understand when you've got money coming in and out, and when you've got large bills coming in and out. And if you can get the money back in a day, then you can plan that in and figure out what you can do within the cash flow analysis. And then do that and bring it back, just bring us back what you did and how you, and what your analysis was.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the motion.
Yeah.
Will somebody make that motion? And Mr. Clerk, you get to figure it out.
I don't want to wait.
First, let's see, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded.
I don't want to see you come back in a month and not have moved any money, because $8 million and 3% is $20,000 a month. So, and we move slowly at this level, so you guys can move quickly at your level, so let's get it done.
Do an analysis, move the money, come back to us in a month and report what you did, and we'll see if you moved enough.
Okay, that sounds good, thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. 10B, adoption of ordinance 22-263, code section 9, health and sanitation.
Mayor and Council, this is the second reading of the garbage ordinance. We've discussed this several times before. As you may know, the garbage RFP is currently out. That closes December 1st. We did have a meeting this week with our two bidders, who are going to be the Republic and Waste Management, because that was part of the RFP that they had to attend that question meeting. But we want to get these things fixed before the RFP closes, because again, the current contract goes till June 30th of 23. So we did a lot of cleaning up in the ordinance. You'll see, of course, the legal version and the version with strike-throughs. One common issue, as silly as it may seem, we get this a lot, is it doesn't say anywhere in the ordinance that I have to use the city refuse service. So we put that in clear right here, so there's no question that anyone will be able to say that after this. Because of course you have to use the city service, but now it's in there. We also added in here that people can use the city contract service per commercial business. We currently don't allow that. I did write the RFP so that whoever the provider is, they will be giving us commercial rates. So if Bob's Restaurant wanted to use our commercial rates, they can. Per state statute, a commercial business can choose any provider they like. We can't make them use our rates, but they have to have a contractor. But that being said, because we have so much garbage pickup, we can get cheaper rates than the business by itself can, so that's something we wanted to add. We also added in here about roll-off service. There's currently nothing in code about roll-off service. You should be able to use a roll-off, for example, if grandma passes away, you want to clean out the house, that sort of thing, construction. And we've ran into issues with this before where there was no restrictions on how long a roll-off could be there. Did it have to have cones around it, liability, so on and so forth. So we want to address that sort of issue. Also, as far as what can be left up by the curb, I've never had that issue here, but I've had it in other cities where it's funny what people think they can leave out for garbage pickup. Not in this city, but I've actually seen people leave out truck cabs for garbage pickup before, just because it's not in code. Again, probably never happened here, but it happens.
Cab?
Yes, sir. A whole truck cab? Yeah. Yeah, as you can imagine, a garbage truck can't pick that up. We also put in here, so currently bulk pickup is, think about it, is quarterly. It shows how often I see it because we don't use it that much. So I changed in the ordinance, and it's in the RFP too, that bulk pickup now will be on a scheduled basis, 6 times out of the year or bi-monthly, where you would call and schedule your bulk pickup versus the provider driving down the city looking for garbage that isn't there. That way it's just easier on the streets versus an empty truck driving around. So
where is the bulk pickup in this ordinance? Because I was trying to find it and couldn't find it.
Bear with me 1 second here, sir, and I'll tell you that.
That's not the 4 foot long pieces, is it?
No, sir, it's not. Mr. Mayor, sir, it's in section 913C, uncontained waste collection. My red right in there. On an on-demand basis through the contract provider, the frequency of these pickups will be set in the city service garbage service contract, which I did set it bi-monthly or 6 times a year. There's also some confusion there. You may remember before there was a question about.
I want to take a look at it.
Of course, sir.
It would be nice if you actually labeled it as being, it's 9-1 again, come again?
913 section C, sir. Uncontained waste collection.
913.
First page.
Okay. It would be nice if you put, when I read that, I did not think of that as being what we think of as our bulk.
Okay.
You need to label that as bulk.
Would you like to call it bulk waste collection, sir?
Yeah, absolutely.
We can certainly do that.
That's what people always refer to it.
Okay, we can do that. Just to be
So
clear.
the concept is each individual person can schedule every 2 months their own personal bulk pickup day.
Correct, sir.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And just to be clear, bulk pickup is not the same thing as setting a garbage bag outside your can. You can still do that. You can still put garbage outside your can that wouldn't fit in your can. However, we did limit that, as the Vice Mayor was saying a second ago, to, for example, bundles of sticks have to be tied up. They can't just be loose. They can only be so long. You could put garbage bags outside your can, but we limited to a number of bags, so you can't put 25 bags outside your can. Because it hardly ever happens, but you always have that person who wants to take advantage where you have 25 bags sitting around your can. So that's why we included it that way. Any more specific questions on the garbage ordinance?
Question, Council. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Matthew, take a look at 9-4-5. Looks like one of the sections where they should have changed 10 days to 30 days, it was left at 10 days. So now we give them a 30-day notice and only give them 10 days to comply. That doesn't make any sense. I think that maybe there's one spot that just got missed. You caught it in 1, 2, 3 places, but the 7th line down still says you've got 10 days to comply under that 30-day notice.
Yep, got it. Thank you, sir. We will grab that one as well.
Well, why are we giving them? This is something that's going to come back on us possibly. Somebody's got a problem out there, and we give them notice. We got to give them a month, so they can leave it sitting there for a month without any kind of grief or problems. Why did we cut that from 10 days to where it was before to now they're going to get 30 days with their pile of stuff sitting in their front yard?
I'm going to be honest, sir. It's been a while since I've written this top of my head. I don't remember. Joe, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can kind of hear some discussion with regard to, I think we're talking about the 30-day requirement and it being extended from 10 days.
That's correct.
And that is because that's a requirement under 9-499 state statute requires us to have a 30-day period in our ordinance.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney.
Then just correcting that 10 days to 30 days that you didn't catch.
That's correct. And updating our code and ordinance to match what is required by state law.
And we will change that one as well, Mr. Westman.
I blame it on the legislators for making yelled at for that.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing that, is there a motion to adopt ordinance 22-263 as amended by our discussions tonight, amending City Code Section 9, Health and Sanitation?
Is this adoption or adoption?
This adoption was introduced at our last meeting. Okay. Any second? Second. Any further discussion on the ordinance? If not, all those in favor of adopting ordinance 22-263, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right.
I can do it by roll call.
Okay. That's right, we changed that rule.
Mayor Schultz.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Fate.
Aye.
Councilmember Conley.
Aye.
Councilmember Claire.
Aye.
Councilmember Brainerd Dawson. Aye. Councilmember Rowan.
Aye.
And Councilmember Stossy.
All right, so the motion is adopted. Now, item 10C, downtown storm drain construction services change order. Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. If you remember a while ago, you approved a construction services IGA with the Pleasant Grove District, whereby they will pay 65% of the cost of the storm drain project, and we will pay the other 35%. That was approved this morning by the Board of Supervisors acting as the Pleasant Grove District Board of Directors. So we have an IGA in place. We have approved plans, and we have a proposal from Aiken Gardner to construct this project for a total of $5,597,260.46. The way we're approaching this project is to do a change order to Aiken Gardner's existing CMAR contract for Litchfield Square. And I listed in the council communication One is that Aiken Gardner will also be working in Old Litchfield Road later on for some of the modifications to the medians, and felt that having two contractors working in a tight space like that would be advantageous. Aiken Gardner has already mobilized all the personnel, office space, trucks, tools, equipment. So having a second contractor do that would does save us some money. And I think one of the most important things is that Aiken Gardner has been working in the downtown area, so they know Liberty Utilities, they know all the other utility companies, they know the businesses, so they understand how to do this work in the downtown area. And I want to introduce Christy Hall with Aiken Gardner. What's that? Christy Hall is the project manager for Aiken Gardner for the Litchfield Square project, and then she will also be the project manager for this downtown storm drain project. So, Sarah, if you have any questions. So, Mayor, I'll just recommend that we approve change order number 1 to the construction services contract for Seymour project for city center infrastructure improvements for the storm drain project in the amount of that dollar amount I mentioned.
Questions from council? Comments? Mr. Vice Mayor?
Apparently it's my night for questions. What do you, would that be in our, 2 questions. Would that be in our existing contractor? Are they committed to more personnel to work on this additional project so it doesn't slow down the existing project? Are they going to pull people off the existing project and just throw this one in there also on something we're set back?
No, that's, this is a pipe project, so they have pipe crews, and we haven't had pipe crews work on Litchfield Square for quite a while, so they will be bringing in their pipe crews again to work on this project.
So they will be remobilizing?
Well, not mobilizing in terms of the equipment and the office and, you know, the office personnel, the project engineer, those people are already in place. It's literally just bringing the pipe crew from, you know, assembling the pipe crew and having them come into the film site.
Okay. My second question is more of a one for maybe internal to our staff. The county's paying part of this bill. We're taking it and adding this thing, the county's, we're doing this as a change order to an existing contract that the county's not a party to. Are we going to have problems doing it this way with trying to get reimbursement? Should this be a standalone contract that we can just flag to the county that won't, and will the change orders are going to confuse somebody down there and hang up our reimbursements?
No, I don't think so, Vice Mayor. I've been very transparent with Putnam District on how we are approaching this project. They're aware of how we are awarding a contract. They frankly don't care that much about how we award a contract. And we have a contract with the Putnam District. So, and in that contract it says that as soon as we award this project, I can bill them for half of their share, and they will pay it. So I don't see any issues there.
It can be smooth.
I want you guys to remember when you told us this, okay?
I just, you know,
When he says it's okay.
Yeah.
It'll be fine, don't worry.
I heard him say liberty.
Yeah. I'm just concerned with my questions with the bureaucracy. We start throwing that thing on a contract that's got a whole bunch of crap that they have nothing to do with. That's attached to it. Okay.
We've done this before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's good. Very straightforward.
Councilman
Woody, how does the dollar figure go towards what we budgeted for this scope of the project?
Well, if you recall, we came in quite a bit higher than we had originally anticipated. The grant application that I put in had this project a little over $2 million, and it has blossomed, whatever. Now, part of that is things that we run into during design, like utility relocations and, additional manholes. Plus, you're putting together a cost estimate basically 6-7 years ago with no design done. So it has grown substantially.
We're $2.5 million over that number.
And probably, I don't know, Chris, if you want to chime in here, but a lot of that is cost increases over the last 2 years. And concrete is, anything that's concrete is just out of sight.
Anything ready mix, pipe, pipelines, concrete pipe.
And steel.
We have, I don't know what to call those funds, AARP funds, and that's not the right number.
Yeah.
From the federal government, it's gonna pay for the majority of our share, that's left over after the 65%. So our budget is really not being impacted dramatically.
That's my concern.
Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve change order number 1 to the CMAR Construction Services contract with A.D. Gardner in the amount of $5,597,260.46? Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion is adopted.
Thank you.
This brings us to executive sessions. We do need an executive session under items 11B and C. What's that?
Maybe I'm not letting you